Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming out this morning. It's Friday morning and you chose to be here. So we're here on the final day of Next. We're here to talk to you about taking your vibe-coded artifact to production. Okay? My name is Colby. I'm in product at Google, and I work on Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. We're talking today on the reality of deploying it into production, your vibe code, your prototypes. And we'll start there, and we'll talk about some of the key differences between your vibe and your production. We'll also give you a little bit more of an overview of what's going to help you get there, Agent Studio and MCP. And then we'll talk a little bit more about transitioning to prod, and my colleague, Zack, is going to come and give a really great demo. So start out with a quote. We used to build software like architects, and now we grow it like gardeners. Starting with vibe-coded prototype lets you see the bloom before you commit to the soil. Now, for the developers in this room, isn't that true? You don't want to go and invest all your resourcing into something that you're not sure is going to bloom. So let's start by acknowledging the prototype Gen AI and prototyping with Gen AI in general. It's become deceptively easy. We call it vibe coding. You write a natural language prompt. You generally get what you want after iterating just a few times. And suddenly, you have a working concept, and you can see it. You can share it. You can interact with it. And it feels like magic. And to be honest, how much has happened over the last year, it's incredible. But as anyone in the room knows and can attest to, a code produced by single prompts, especially one shot, it's not a production backend. And on the right, you have reality. Okay? On the left, you have our prototype, and on the right, you actually have reality and what it takes to get there. To actually ship this to enterprise users, we have to harden it. We need version control and actual testing frameworks. And one of the biggest headaches in Gen AI today is that a fragile prototype built during ideation, it doesn't always naturally fit into your Git repository or your local code base. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that. So your typical project flow, usually there's kind of two different phases. One is highly collaborative, and another is a little bit more specialized as you kind of move on. Sometimes it creates a massive wall in this typical flow, and you think about how your teams work today. So the ideation and iteration phase, it's highly collaborative, at least it should be. You should be getting all your stakeholder feedback, even potentially some customer feedback. It's fluid. But the moment the concept needs to move to evaluation and ML hardening, it does kind of hit this wall. And there's a handoff at some point. There's sometimes several handoffs that take place, and we want to make that smoother. We want to make sure that the engineers who might be receiving this prototype, they don't have to go and reverse engineer everything. They have some sort of continuity, and they can take this to something that's production grade. And if they don't do that, then everyone's kind of frustrated. So the two core questions here is how to get to production while keeping everyone in the loop, everyone on the same page, and how do I have this interoperability of what I create? How to make it portable? And when something's not portable, everyone feels the pain. So getting the whole team on the same page, that's important because most AI projects are really cross-functional. Okay? So for the IT administrator, the main issue is enforcing governance, ensuring that it's secure, that it's compliant, and that it has the right protocols for this sensitive enterprise data. For the product manager, it's translating vague AI and abstract concepts into something that's more measurable. And to be honest, if it's coming from PM, maybe it is vague. Maybe it is a little bit vague. And so we need to do a little bit of refining there. And there also needs to be some alignment with some of their stakeholders. For developers, this is a hurdle. They don't want to go and write a bunch of boilerplate code when you can go and if you have the right tooling, you can create a really, really good prototype that is keen to go to production. And meanwhile, for your enterprise architect, it's trying to standardize the enterprise AI stack and securely integrate all these unpredictable Gen AI models with rigid legacy systems at scale. OK, so now I'm going to introduce the stack. To achieve the challenges we discussed, one, we have our new Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. And we have this new Agent Studio. And on the right-hand side, you see our MCP server, which can help take you the rest of the way. It can help take you to production. So we start with 0 to 1 journey in Gemini Enterprise Agent Studio. This is a unified enterprise environment designed to rapidly prototype, evaluate, and progress your AI vision. You can think of the studio as kind of like a launch pad for all builders in your organization. Your everyday developers, your business technologists, your product managers, maybe even some accountants with good ideas. Everyone should be able to use this, anyone who's building. Now, the Agent Studio acts as an environment for getting started with agents and agent-powered applications. And so we're using this as ground zero. So in the studio, we typically start with goals, and we try to make this very goal-oriented. Consider the type of AI that you want to be powering your application. And then we define how. How does the AI need to be configured to get what you want? You plug in your agents and your prompts, and you immediately get a testable build. And one of the best parts is for the collaboration. You can share these working designs directly with anyone in your org. In fact, they don't even need a GCP account. If your admin is approved, you can share these prototypes with anyone within your organization. So we're moving away from just having the most specialized ML engineers define the core AI logic. Instead, we're empowering the actual domain experts alongside the everyday developers to define the agent's core functions. So this is where the team conducts the initial prototype on a dedicated canvas. Non-developers can specify anything required for a production-ready agent. And the main benefit here is you're capturing all this institutional knowledge. You're capturing this business intent organically. And we want to preserve that before we jump straight into the weeds. I think that's really important. So at this stage, we're capturing the intent and the safety boundaries and the constraints perfectly before another engineer needs to go and open an IDE. So you now have the ability in Agent Studio to convert your prompts, your tools, or your models directly into agents with one click. And you'll also be able to wire up an agent itself directly in the studio. And this can be used to power your app. So here we're utilizing Gemini as the reasoning engine. And we have specific tasks. And we equip this with tools. And we give it access to Google search and grounding or specific internal APIs. So we've now built an agent-centric portion of the app. The vision is now starting to become functional. It's still a prototype, and it still needs to be hardened. So the other cool thing is I can bring a service that I already configured on the agent platform. So here I'm showing our new live avatars. So this is something that's really cool. I already built it, and I can go and bring this into my application without having to go and create something new. So I can prototype around the specs that I've already defined without even losing anything. And now one of the biggest pain points is finally the handoff. I mentioned there's multiple handoffs that often take place, and we want to make sure it's much smoother. You have a great web UI prototype now, but how does it get into the source control? With Agent Studio, you can now export it with one click. So we have one-click integration with GitHub, with your VS Code, different IDEs, and we will be expanding that. With Agent Studio, you can also inherit the exact prompts, parameters, and tools, definitions that you use directly once you export it into GitHub. And that way, you're ensuring that this product vision survives the jump over into more involved engineering. Okay? So I'm going to show a demo of our prototyping phase, more end-to-end. Okay? And I'm representing a PM. I am a PM. And my goal is to create a personalized portal for my hypothetical premier clients at my bank. And so first, I'm going to start exploring our newly supported live avatars. Okay? And you saw that I selected the live API in the studio, chose the avatar. I used my own image. Okay? And so this is me that I just uploaded not too long ago. And I see it works. It works pretty well. Maybe not quite exactly, but it's pretty close. And it's kind of creepy looking at yourself. But he's talking. I removed the sound too, because it sounds a little bit odd, and I didn't do the voice cloning either. So now, right now, after I made sure it works, maybe I feel a little self-conscious. I don't want to be the live avatar. So now I come into the code, and I'm switching the code snippet. I'm actually replacing that with a new avatar endpoint, one of our defaults. And so now I feel a little bit more comfortable. And here, I'm also changing the settings. You can change the code generation model to Gemini or even Claude. You can change the parameters, and you can change what kind of assets you're actually linking. So here you see with the code snippet, like literally just copy pasted. And so I have a new default avatar here. And so now I want to create my prompt, because I don't want it just an avatar. What I really want this to do is I want it to show our customers, our banking customers, information about what's happening today in the stock market. So we'll give a stock ticker feed. And we're also getting them live access to different news articles, what's breaking, so they can toggle back and forth between live news and some of the top movers. So I can pull this in. And I also have this live avatar that has access to internal information about my account, but can also contextualize this with all the external factors that are going on. And I think that's really cool. And so now I'm making sure the different pieces of this work. I want to make sure that the AI is well forged, okay? And then I can go and I share it with my colleagues. And again, if you're designing in the studio, you can share with anyone your GCP account, and if permitted by your administrator, you can share it with anyone in your organization, even if they don't have a GCP account. So I'm just proofing this out right now, okay? And now I'm ready to export. I'm going to go take this to GitHub, and then I'm going to take it to VS Code. I can take it anywhere else I want. And so it's that simple just to start with a prototype. But here's the thing, okay? You were pulling in all this information. It needs to be really good. All right, we need someone to go and proof this. This is still a prototype, and so we need to get the rest of the way there. So once you're in the IDE, this is where the MCP comes in. It's incredibly useful, and many teams don't realize that's fully supported here. It's in GA. We have the Agent Platform, MCP. It's GA. And at its core, the MCP is an open standard, and it dictates how the models connect to external data sources and tools. And normally, if you want your agent to query a local database or read the file systems during development, you have to do a lot of work, like creating wrappers around your APIs. It's taxing. But with the MCP, you skip that. And so I'm going to invite Zack up here. He's going to tell you a little bit more and show you a great demo of how this actually is going to look like using that MCP when you go and transition that prototype into production. Welcome, Zack.
Thank you very much. All right, I will. Oh, we're straight in. Sweet. Can we switch over to the demo now? So yes, hello everyone. My name is Zack Akil. I am a developer advocate for Cloud AI, and to that, I am first and foremost a developer. So who are the developers in the room? Can we see hands raised? People who write code. And then who are the vibe coders? It's like the separate people. Have we got people in the middle, developer vibe coders? Have we got developers? Actually, I'm just using this to query things. Have we got developers who don't generate code at all? They still like writing by hand every line of code? I thought he was lifting his phone. OK, interesting. All right, so I'm a developer. I've got here an app here that I've made. It's a kind of a simple app. I'm big into education. So my little app here, all it does is generate teaching material based on a subject and a student's interest. I think this is kind of a cool use case of generative AI. We can make more personalized teaching materials. And let's say this is in production, but classically I'll sort of vibe code something like this, throw it out, and in terms of evaluation of how good this actually is, usually it's just human evaluation. So I'll look at it and be like, that looks about right. Anyone admit to doing this with generative apps? Yeah, it looks right. It's probably right. That's not good enough. I think we can all agree. But doing evaluation on generative apps is hard. In fact, we had a developer meetup for AI application developers. And the top topic chosen by people coming to that meetup was evaluations. So evaluations with generative models is tricky. We have a few services on Google Cloud that enable you to do that. It's built into the console, so you can go in to the console and navigate to it. We have lots of documentation on our evaluation services. But this is a kind of a lot of things that kind of take me out of the flow from where I'm most comfortable, which is right here in the IDE. This is VS Code with Gemini CLI on the side. Great, we've updated Gemini CLI again. We do that every few days. But this is a good enough version for what I'm about to do. We have enabled here our Agent Platform MCP server. And built into that, we have a few things. So this MCP server has a lot of endpoints. So we have ones to do generation, prediction, managing our notebooks, managing endpoints, so if you've deployed models, managing the models themselves, tuning, and this one. This one is my top pick of the most useful MCP thing to have in your IDE. So this is the evaluation MCP endpoint. What it enables me to do, I'm going to build up to it, but first, let's say I'm in my application, I've got my prompt in there, and I'm going to ask it first, let's do something simple. Let's generate an example output for the topic. Anyone have a topic in class that they want to recommend? What's their favorite topic in class? Favorite subject, anyone? History. I heard history. History, classic. And favorite interest? Give me an interest. What was that? Jump roping. Love it. So jump rope in. So we're going to generate an example output. Now, I think to most people this is going to seem a bit trivial. It's just going to generate an output. I mean, I'm already using a CLI tool with a generative model. So what's the point of using an MCP for this? Because I can just like ask the CLI to give me the output. But if I did that, I wouldn't be testing my prompt. Because the CLI tool, our harness, has all that harness prompt and system instructions and all that stuff, and it would kind of contaminate the prompt that I'm trying to test. So the beauty of the MCP server is it can make those direct calls directly to the models on Agent Platform and get back the actual result that my application would get back. And what's nice about this is, classically, I would usually have to create a script in my project to test my prompts. But if I've got the MCP server to do it, I don't need to kind of clutter up my project with that. And another note, you might think, well, I can just take the prompt and go over to sort of the agent platform and paste it in and test it there. But we're developers. We do not like doing this too much. This is kind of nasty, right? I don't want to do that. I want to stay where I am and just ask it to do it. So it actually did it. It picked up my prompt from my project. It called the model directly on Agent Platform with my thing. So it's come up with these things. So the ancient roots of jump roping. Who knew? And the cultural change, modern popularity. Great assignment. So that's yours to take home to do. But this did the thing that we're all used to doing, generate stuff. I want to evaluate it. So evaluate the response. So now, this is usually where, after I ask CLI to do its thing, this is usually where I'll turn to my colleagues and distract them as I wait for the output to come back. After, of course, I always YOLO and say, please do it. And it's going to go off, and it's going to run evaluation on Agent Platform. So we have set up already like multiple sort of somewhat best practice ways of evaluating the outputs of LLMs versus a rubric. And the beauty of this is, without configuring it at all, I can just say evaluate it, and it will use sort of the default configuration of how well is this output responding to the prompt it was given, and make the sort of a match of 1 out of 5, how good did this do? So this is what it did. So it said, evaluation, 5 out of 5, excellent. And it even gives sort of specific callouts as to here's where it went right. So specifically in my prompt, I specified I want this number of points, it needs to be on topic, it needs to do these things. And effectively, our evaluation service is able to take that prompt as a rubric and judge it against the outputs of the generation. So it's able to do that without me having to configure it, which is just like magic. I can finally say I'm doing evaluation with minimal effort. But that's kind of not all, because the beauty of this being our MCP server is it's also in my entire project. So in my project, I have some sort of sample assignments that I'm kind of using as my sort of tests, or like regression tests, in case after I do some changes to the prompt, maybe I want to check it's still performing OK. So I can then say, just to the Gemini CLI who's got the MCP server, I say, OK, evaluate my sample assignments. And it doesn't care how bad of spelling I am. So it's going to go off, and because, again, it's an MCP server inside a CLI tool, it can see my whole project. It can work out that, oh, I've got sample assignments here, and they have sample inputs and sample outputs based off of my application. And it's going to go off. And let's YOLO this, do it all. It's going to go through. It's going to evaluate them all. And again, I'm not having to copy and paste. I'm not having to switch context. I'm just there in my IDE where I'm most comfortable in life. And it's going to go through, analyze each one. And again, like I said, this is the evaluation service as is. So you can further optimize this to your specific needs. Because again, evaluation of generated outputs is incredibly subjective. And our evaluation service actually has options to define custom evaluation metrics. So we can even use things as simple as classic NLP, where it's just checking, does this word match this word, all the way up to like sentiment and then full generative LLMs, checking the LLMs based on your own rubrics. So you can define your own evaluation service and have that sort of at your developer's fingertips so that no matter who's building what, they can test to the same standard. So it's done that. It's analyzed all three. Because it's an MCP server, it's able to call the service multiple times, and it's able to go through and say, actually, OK, one was good. The second case, it didn't do too well, and it gives justification of that. And then the third case, very bad. So OK, I need to do some more prompt optimization before I roll this thing out, which is crazy. I never thought of actually just looking at tests from a generative model and changing the prompt. It's crazy. So the beauty of that is, now that I know I need to change my prompt, we have a service for doing prompt management. So I won't go into that yet, but that's something to explore. Like, we can also take these evaluations and say, OK, based on these evaluations, update the prompt, do the evaluation again, and then push that prompt to our prompt management service that everyone else in the team can actually use. So this is like an incredible tool to sort of have at all your developers' fingertips. But with that, I want to hand it back to Colby, who's going to talk a bit more about something else, or no, we're wrapping up? We're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. So, we got slides to show? We don't have slides to show. There's a final slide, no? There's not? There is. There is a final slide. Let's go to the final slide. There's not a final slide. The final slide is me. I am the final slide. So, thank you all so much. Thank you. Well, we wanted to keep this session nice and short because it's an early morning session. I hope you appreciate that. But yeah, thank you all so much. I hope you had a great time at Next. We're going to be hanging around to answer questions. But if not, yeah, thank you so much. Have a good morning.